The night Michael Harrow returned home after 20 years of silence, the air seemed to shift across the small, quiet neighborhood as though it sensed something deeply wrong. His childhood home stood exactly where he left it, white pillars, tall windows, and the sweeping oak tree that once held the rope swing he used to share with his younger sister. But the warmth, the laughter, the life that once radiated from its rooms had faded long before he stepped foot back onto the cracked driveway. What awaited him now was not reunion, forgiveness, or reconciliation. What awaited him was opportunity, one that had been quietly growing for decades, waiting for a prodigal son's shadow to cross the threshold again. A soft glow spilled from the living room windows, carrying the faint outline of someone moving inside. For a moment, Michael paused at the door, his fingers brushing the rusted brass handle, remembering how many times he had slammed this same door behind him, when he'd fought with his parents, when he'd sworn he would never come back, when he had driven away in a borrowed car and left his family to clean up the mess he'd caused. But now he inhaled slowly, smoothed the front of his jacket, and stepped inside as if he still belonged here. Inside, the air was thick with the sterile scent of medical equipment. Machines hummed in the far corner. A wheelchair sat beside the old fireplace, and photographs on the mantel displayed the life he had missed or abandoned. His father, once a towering man with shoulders like iron beams, now lay frail and gaunt in a hospital bed positioned near the window. The years had not simply aged him, they had hollowed him. His eyes fluttered open when the door clicked shut, and for a long moment he stared as though looking at a ghost. "Michael?" His voice cracked like thin glass. Michael smiled, soft, warm, rehearsed, almost believable. "Dad, I'm home." What he didn't say aloud was that he knew exactly why he was home. Not for forgiveness, not for love, not for closure, but for the fortune his father had accumulated over a lifetime. An estimated $3.9 million in liquid assets, properties, stocks, and life insurance benefits. A fortune that had been earmarked for Michael's younger sister, Emily, the one who stayed, the one who cared for their father, the one who never abandoned her family. Michael had returned because Emily was about to inherit everything he believed should have always been his, and he wasn't going to let that happen. The house felt smaller than he remembered, shrinking around him with every step he took. The walls seemed to absorb his presence, amplifying the silence between him and the father he left behind. But behind that silence was something else, something far more dangerous than resentment, an unspoken vulnerability. His father, weakened by illness and isolation, clung to the hope that his prodigal son had come home to mend what was broken. Hope makes people blind, and Michael knew it. He walked to the bedside, adjusting the blanket tucked beneath his father's frail hands. "I should have come sooner," he said quietly. Another rehearsed line, another gentle lie. "But I'm here now. Whatever you need, I'll take care of it." His father's eyes glistened. "You're my boy. I knew you'd come back." Michael swallowed the smirk that threatened to show. Instead, he nodded, letting the illusion wrap itself around the room. "Before we go deeper into this chilling case, take a moment to settle in with the story. These moments, these first cracks in a family's armor, are where everything begins to shift. And as you listen, think of this. What happens when someone you once trusted walks back into your life with a smile and intentions you cannot see? Keep that question close. You'll need it as the truth slowly unravels. Over the next few days, Michael worked carefully, playing the role of the remorseful son who had finally come home. He cooked meals, cleaned dishes, refilled prescriptions, and listened patiently as his father shared old memories, some joyful, some painful, all threaded with the fragile hope that the past could still be repaired. To the neighbors and family friends who visited, Michael appeared transformed. He greeted them politely, shook hands warmly, and spoke about redemption, reconciliation, and second chances. He used words like grateful and humbled, and within a week, whispers began floating through town like drifting smoke. Maybe he really has changed. But in the quiet spaces, behind closed doors, inside the dimly lit study, or during late-night calls he took outside on the porch, Michael's true intentions surfaced. He spoke in low tones, asking questions about estate lawyers, probate delays, medical directives, and accelerated inheritances. He studied old filing cabinets, browsed financial statements, and pieced together the fragments of a fortune he had once walked away from. What he discovered was both infuriating and motivating. Every asset, every investment, Every life insurance policy had been meticulously organized under Emily's name. His sister didn't just stand to inherit the majority of the estate, she stood to inherit everything. According to neighbors, Emily had spent more than a decade caring for their father as his health declined. She drove him to chemotherapy, managed his appointments, handled his bills, and stayed beside him through hospital nights that blurred together. She sacrificed relationships, job opportunities, and a life of her own to ensure he never felt abandoned. And while she carried that weight, Michael carried nothing at all. But now, in his mind, none of that mattered. Bloodline mattered. Birthright mattered. The Harrow estate, no matter who earned it, protected it, or preserved it, should return to the eldest son. All he had to do was find the right moment to shift everything in his direction. That moment arrived 3 nights after he returned. The storm rolled in quietly, blanketing the town in heavy clouds. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and rain began tapping against the windows like impatient fingers. Emily was due to visit in the morning, and Michael knew her presence would complicate everything. His window of opportunity was closing. He sat alone in the study, a small brass lamp casting a pool of amber light across the desk. Before him lay a stack of documents, his father's most recent will, notarized and witnessed. Emily's name appeared repeatedly. Primary beneficiary, sole executor, full administrator. Michael stared at the signature line, running a finger over the indented strokes of his father's raw writing. He whispered to himself, he should have left it to me. At that moment, something in him hardened, a decision, fully sealed. He stood, walked slowly towards his father's room, and paused in the doorway. The old man slept soundly, his breathing shallow but steady. Lightning flickered through the curtains, illuminating the fragile outline of the man who once terrified him as a child. Now he looked small, vulnerable, dependent. Michael stepped closer, and then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Dad, we need to talk. Not tomorrow. Tonight." His father stirred, blinking awake. "What is it?" Michael sat on the edge of the bed, his tone soft but sharpened by an underlying urgency. "I've been thinking about the future, about the family, about what you want to happen when your time comes." The old man looked confused. "We already handled that, Emily." "That's the problem," Michael interrupted. "It's not fair to put all of that on her. You said you wanted the family to stay together, didn't you?" A long pause. Rain pattered against the window like a ticking clock. "Of course I do." "Then don't divide us. Don't give her everything and leave me with nothing. You know what that would do." His father looked away, his weakened hands trembling. "Michael, you left." "I came home," he replied quickly. "That has to mean something." Silence curled between them, a deep, heavy silence that pressed into the air until the old man finally exhaled. "What do you want me to do?" Michael leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Revise the will. Just make it equal. That's all I'm asking." But that wasn't all, and his father knew it. The old man closed his eyes, the weight of decades pressing on his chest. "Emily has done everything for me. I can't just take that away." And for the first time, Michael's smile slipped. The softness vanished. Something cold and calculating rose beneath his expression. His father noticed the change. A flicker of fear crossed his eyes. "Michael, what are you planning?" But Michael stood before he had to answer. "You rest. We'll talk again tomorrow." He walked out of the room with a new plan forming, one that didn't require persuasion or emotional leverage. One that involved legal maneuvers, forged signatures, manipulated documents, and carefully planted stories. It was no longer about convincing his father. It was about bypassing him entirely. And by the time Emily arrived the next morning, Michael Harrow had already set the first stage of his inheritance scam in motion, a scheme that would soon unravel into one of the most shocking betrayals their town had ever seen. The morning Emily arrived, the house felt heavier, as though it sensed the growing fracture between truth and deception. She walked through the front door with her hair pulled back, her clothes wrinkled from an overnight shift at the community clinic. Dark circles bruised her eyes, but her expression softened when she saw her father sleeping peacefully in the living room. Then she saw Michael. He was standing in the corner, arms folded, watching quietly, too quietly. Emily froze, her keys still dangling from her fingers. "You're still here." Michael smiled, trying to mimic warmth. "I told you I'd be here for Dad. You shouldn't have to do everything alone." Emily stared for a long moment. You haven't been here for 20 years. I'm here now, he said. But as she walked past him, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted since his return. Something cold, something sharp around the edges. She checked their father's medications, adjusted his blanket, and glanced at the stack of mail on the side table. Hospital bills, insurance notices, and a thick envelope from an estate attorney. That one had her name on it. Michael noticed the envelope too. She picked it up, sliding her finger under the seal. But before she could open it, Michael stepped forward. Emily, maybe you shouldn't read that alone. She looked at him, puzzled. It's just documentation for Dad's estate. I handle this every week. Michael's jaw tightened for a split second before returning to its forced calm. I just want to help. She shook her head gently. You've never wanted to help. Not with this. The envelope tore with a soft rip. She unfolded the fresh set of papers. A will revision draft dated only 3 weeks prior. Her name was listed as sole executor. But now a new draft requested by someone unnamed had arrived with changes marked in red. Changes that included adding Michael back into the will. Emily's heartbeat quickened. Who asked for this revision? Dad and I talked last night, Michael said. He wants things to be equal. Her head snapped toward him. He never said that to me. Well, Michael replied, maybe he didn't tell you everything. Emily stepped back, her voice wavering, but firm. He trusts me because I'm the one who stayed, because I'm the one who cared for him. And now you show up, after 20 years, and expect to rewrite everything. Michael held her gaze, but inside, anger flickered like a match waiting to ignite. Emily folded the documents tightly. I'm calling the attorney. Her footsteps echoed sharply as she walked to the kitchen. Michael watched her go, every second tightening the knot around his own plan. He had expected resistance, but he had also expected time. Time to push their father into signing something new. Time to isolate Emily or turn her into the aggressor. Time to craft the narrative he needed. But now that she had seen the documents, everything had to move faster. That evening, rain swept through the neighborhood again. Wind rattled the shutters as Michael stepped outside to make a phone call, one he had been planning for days. A quiet voice answered on the other end. Harrow residence? Mr. Dalton? Michael whispered. I'm ready. Bring the papers tonight. The estate attorney's assistant hesitated. Your father requested that any changes include your sister present. He changed his mind, Michael said quickly. He's too tired to talk. We just need the signature. This can't wait. A long pause. Mr. Dalton will be there within the hour. Michael exhaled slowly. The final piece was falling into place. All he needed was a shaky signature from a frail old man who could barely keep his hands steady. Inside the house, his father slept under a dim lamp, unaware of the storm gathering beyond the window, and inside his own family. The attorney arrived with a leather briefcase and a tight expression, aware that something felt off, but bound by professional obligation. He followed Michael into the living room, where Michael gently woke his father. Dad, the attorney is here. It's time. His father blinked slowly, confused. Now, but Emily isn't. She said she was fine with equal distribution. Michael interrupted softly. You don't remember? She agreed this afternoon. His father's face twisted. Did she? Of course, Michael said, gripping his father's shoulder just hard enough to guide the moment where he needed it to go. She just wants you to rest. The old man nodded weakly, too riddled with fatigue to protest. His breath shook as Mr. Dalton approached with the documents. Mr. Harrow, the attorney said quietly, I need to confirm that you understand this revision. This adds your son, Michael, back into your estate. The old man hesitated. I want peace. I want them to stay together. Then this is the best way, Michael whispered. The attorney cleared his throat. I need your signature here and here. His father's trembling hand reached for the pen. The ink glistened under the lamp as the pen touched paper. And just before the strokes formed, Emily's voice cut through the silence. Stop. Michael froze. His father froze. Mr. Dalton froze mid-breath. Emily stood in the doorway, soaked from the rain, her eyes burning with shock and betrayal. What are you doing? She demanded. Michael recovered first. Emily, you're misunderstanding. No, she snapped. I know exactly what this is. She marched forward, snatching the documents off the bed before her father could sign. Mr. Dalton stepped back, startled. She flipped through the pages, her voice trembling with anger. You tried to force him into signing this behind my back? Michael stepped toward her. I didn't force anything. He wanted, it what? Tuh, she said, turning to the frail man. Did you ask for this? Did you tell him you wanted to rewrite everything? Her father's eyes shimmered. His lips trembled. I, I didn't want fighting. That's not an answer, Emily whispered. But before he could speak, his chest tightened. He clutched his side, gasping as a wave of pain washed over him. Dad? Emily dove forward, helping him lie back as panic filled her voice. Stay with me. Just breathe. Michael rushed forward as well, but not with panic, anxiety of a different kind. If their father collapsed now, before the papers were signed, everything he had built would crumble. Mr. Dalton grabbed his phone. I'm calling emergency services. Emily nodded, holding her father's hands tightly. Dad, listen to me. Stay awake. You're okay. You're okay. But his eyes fluttered, his breath thinned, and by the time the paramedics arrived, he was barely conscious. They rushed him to the hospital. Emily rode with him, clutching his hand as machines beeped in frantic patterns. Michael stayed behind, but only for a moment. He darted upstairs, rifling through drawers, cabinets, and files, searching for one thing, the original will. The real one. The one naming Emily as sole executor. He tore through the room like a thief because that was exactly what he had become. But he found nothing. Emily had stored the will somewhere else, somewhere safe. By the time Michael reached the hospital, Emily was sitting outside the ICU room, tears rolling down her cheeks. For the first time in years, she looked like the little sister he once protected. Before he abandoned her. Before greed hollowed him out. She wiped her eyes as he approached. The doctor says he may not wake up. Michael felt the weight of those words, but not with sorrow, with fear. If their father died before signing anything, the entire estate would be locked into the pre-existing documents, the ones that left him with nothing. Emily looked at him, her voice barely audible. He trusted you. He believed you changed, and you tried to use him. For a moment, Michael considered lying again. But the look in her eyes, the depth of her heartbreak, made words stick in his throat. You don't understand, he muttered. No, she said firmly. You don't understand. Money isn't worth this. A signature isn't worth manipulating a dying man. But for Michael, it was. It always had been. Their father passed shortly after dawn. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting pale orange light across the hospital corridor as Emily sobbed quietly into her hands. Michael stared through the window at the sky, knowing the moment was irreversible, and that his last chance at securing the inheritance had died with the man himself. But he wasn't finished. People like Michael never stop. 3 days later, he attempted what investigators would later describe as an incredibly sloppy and desperate forgery. He submitted altered documents to the estate attorney's office, documents riddled with inconsistencies, mismatched signatures, incorrect dates, and obvious digital edits. Emily discovered the fraud almost immediately. She contacted a forensic document specialist. She contacted their family attorney. And finally, she contacted the police. What followed was a tangled investigation involving falsified signatures, manipulated emails, and a timeline that revealed Michael's intentions from the moment he walked back into the house. When confronted, Michael denied everything, then minimized everything, then blamed everything on misunderstanding, stress, and emotional confusion. But evidence, real evidence, does not bend to storytelling. And when the case reached court, the judge needed only 30 minutes of deliberation to issue a decision that would expose everything. Michael Harrow was found guilty of attempted inheritance fraud, forgery, and interference with legal documents. He received a multi-year prison sentence. He lost any claim to the estate. He lost his family. And when the verdict was read aloud, he stared straight ahead without blinking, as though the world he had tried to manipulate had finally collapsed around him. As for Emily, she inherited the estate exactly as their father intended. But victory did not feel like triumph. The lingering ache of betrayal lived in every room of the house. Every memory was stained by the truth. Their father had believed forgiveness was possible. Emily had believed her brother's return meant healing. But what came instead was the darkest truth of all. Sometimes the prodigal son returns not to reconcile, but to take everything you've built in the years you survived without him. In the end, the truth was exposed, but the damage was already permanent. Family ties had shattered, trust had evaporated, and a once quiet home now echoed with absence. Stories like these force us to confront a difficult question. How well do we really know the people we share our blood with? And how far might they go when desperation meets greed? And so, as this haunting story closes, hold on to this. The most dangerous betrayals aren't committed by strangers. They come from the people we once believed would protect us. Do you think everything that came to light was truly the full story? Or do some secrets remain buried beneath the years? Your thoughts matter here. If this kind of deep investigative storytelling speaks to you, stay close. There are more shadows to illuminate, more truths to drag into the open, and more hidden motives waiting to be exposed.